Trump and NATO's Mark Rutte meeting that is going to take place at the White House. Time and again, Trump has pushed for NATO countries to spend more on defense and has threatened to pull U.S. support for members who don't pay at least 2% of their GDP on defense. Now, this crucial meeting comes as Ukraine has accepted a 30-day ceasefire proposal by the United States following a critical peace talks between U.S. and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Now, a U.S. delegation is in Moscow for the peace talks. After Ukraine and U.S. peace talks, Russia has also emphasized that any peace deal would be on the terms of Moscow and not of Washington. Russia has also stressed that it does not want temporary ceasefire in Ukraine and emphasized that NATO should not be a part of this discussion.
We agree with the propositions to stop hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that such ceasefire should be such that would lead to a permanent peace and remove the initial, original causes of the crisis.
Наша позиция изложена по поводу того, что это не что иное, как временная передышка для украинских военных, больше ничего. И мы считаем, что наша цель все-таки это долгосрочное мирное урегулирование. Мы к этому стремимся. Мирное урегулирование, которое учитывает законные интересы нашей страны, наша озабоченность известна. Вот какие-то такие шаги, которые имитируют мирные действия, мне кажется, никому не нужны.
However, the Ukrainian President Zelensky has claimed that Putin's comments on ceasefire show that he is essentially preparing to reject the 30-day ceasefire proposal and that he is afraid to tell the U.S. President Donald Trump directly that he wants this war, however, to continue.
Ми всі почули з Росії дуже передбачувані, дуже маніпулятивні слова Путіна у відповідь на ідею тиші на фронті. Він фактично готує відмову станом на зараз. Путін, звісно, боїться сказати прямо президенту Трампу, що хоче продовжувати цю війну. Хоче вбивати українців.
Now, United States President Donald Trump has also reacted to Russian President Putin's statement on Ukraine and U.S. ceasefire proposal, saying that they were promising but not complete yet. During his meeting with NATO Secretary General at the Oval Office, Trump said that Russia would do the right thing.
Vladimir Putin just said he is open to a ceasefire, but he does still have some concerns. He suggested that you two should speak directly. Do you have plans to speak to him soon? If so, when are you confident you can get this across the country?
Sure. He did say that today. It was a very promising statement because other people are saying different things, and you don't know if they have anything to really, if they have any meaning, or I don't know. I think some of them were making statements. I don't think they have anything to do with it. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him.
Now, right after the talks that are ongoing, the Russian President Putin has also thanked India and 4 other countries, including US, China, South Africa and Brazil, for their attention on the Ukraine war settlement.
First of all, I would like to start with words of gratitude to the President of the United States, Mr. Trump, for paying so much attention to the Ukraine settlement. All of us have a lot on our plates, but many state leaders, the chairman of the Chinese People's Republic, the Prime Minister of India, President of Brazil, and South African Republic all pay a lot of attention and devote a lot of time to this issue, and we are thankful to them because it's all aimed at the noble cause of stopping hostilities and stopping human casualties.
Well, Srinjoy is connected with us. Good morning, Srinjoy. It seems that Putin is also showing that same kind of willingness, however, says that there are conditions applied as far as when it comes to no involvement of NATO, and saying that the conditions would be that favor Russia when it comes to calling off the war or the ceasefire settlement.
The Russians have always said that there are certain things they absolutely must have. One is that Ukraine should never be part of NATO. NATO has crept towards Russia, and perhaps this is something that worries Russia. Countries like Poland, the 3 Baltic states, Finland, Sweden, Romania, all countries that are now part of NATO. Now they don't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. That is one issue, but things are still very complicated. So one, of course, relates to territory. Currently, Russia holds a lot of Ukrainian territory, or territory that Ukraine says it is Ukrainian. Then there is the issue of the Crimea. The Crimea is Ukrainian, say the Ukrainians. The Russians took it over some years ago. Now that too is a problem that has to be solved. So there are various issues that have to be looked at. As far as India is concerned, India has made really 2 points. You remember Prime Minister Narendra Modi telling President Putin in front of television cameras that the 21st century is not a time for war. That apart, India has always said that this war has created enormous problems for South countries that India is a part of and India one of the leaders of. This is huge increase in prices of fuel, food grains and fertilizers that have hurt many South countries. So if the war does end and ends quickly, then these problems will get sorted out to a large extent. But it's still very complicated, and we are, I imagine, still a distance away from a ceasefire and peace that will actually be conclusive and long-lasting.
Right, because here already we are looking at Zelensky hitting back at Putin, saying that there seems to be a deliberate delay in talks. However, Putin wants conditions that would be favorable to Russia if this settlement for ceasefire deal is reached. Please to stay on with us, Srinjoy, because speaking of the US President Donald Trump, we also speak of the global trade war. US President Donald Trump, who is now threatened to impose 200% tariff on wine, champagne and other alcoholic beverages that are imported from the European Union. Donald Trump, who has escalated the trade war in response to the EU's retaliation against his steel and aluminum tariffs, where the trade tensions flared up after EU imposed tariffs on $28 billion worth of American goods in response to Trump's 25% tariff on steel and aluminum. Later, the EU announced that it would apply counter tariffs on US imports. Now, Donald Trump has warned that unless the EU rescinds its tariff immediately, the US will impose heavy duties on wine, champagne and other alcoholic products. Trump said his administration would impose a 200% tariff on alcoholic beverages from the EU unless it withdraws the 50% tariff on EU imposed on US spirits. Let's in the meantime speak of the US exports to EU into the year 2024 and the top 5 products and the amount that is now attached. Chemicals worth over $81,035 million. We also speak of oil and gas that goes up to the amount of $62,668 million. Transportation equipment worth over $52,000 million, computer and electronics going beyond $40 million, and non-electrical machinery items that goes beyond $23,931 million. How do we understand this threat or this warning, Srinjoy, that has now been given amid this fear of global trade war?
This is getting hugely complicated. Trump is fighting trade wars with the Canadians, with the Mexicans, with the Chinese, and with the EU. The EU, of course, is about 27 countries. So there's a lot of countries he's fighting trade wars with. And the objects of that America is importing are very varied. China imports exports hundreds of billions of dollars of manufactured goods to America. Canada exports a lot of varied things. And strangely enough, what happens with Canada and Mexico is that, let's say, parts for a car that is made in Detroit by General Motors, some parts for that car are made in Mexico and some parts are made in Canada. Not for all cars, but quite a lot of them. So when there is an increase in tariff, a flat increase in tariff from things coming in from Mexico and Canada, then what happens is American cars made in America become more expensive. Now these are bits of fine print that President Trump will have to look at, or his advisors will have to tell him about. Otherwise, there is one possibility that is lurking there, and that is inflation. Now, if the goods coming in become more expensive, like cars, inevitably, then the big problem is that the American consumer will have to pay more. So if the American consumer is paying more, it is clearly inflation.
So in the garb of fair trade practices, it seems that the trade war that is now intensifying, especially when it comes to the US-EU, that follows with the European Union's decision to impose a 50% tariff on American whiskey, with the US President Donald Trump, who has threatened retaliatory tariffs on EU alcohol imports, including wine and champagne. Well, it seems to go on with multiple countries there. Thank you very much for the moment, Srinjoy, for joining in. With that, we head into a short break.